I recognized his laugh before I saw his face. It's a strange thing, recognizing someone by their laugh in a restaurant where jazz is playing and everyone's talking at once. But I recognized it. 14 years next to the same person, and his laugh becomes part of you, like your own breathing. You stop noticing it until you hear it somewhere it has no business being. It was a Thursday, around 7 in the evening. I'd walked into Carmine's with Jen just to have dinner, just to breathe after our shift. We'd worked 12 hours. My feet hurt and I was thinking about nothing except a glass of wine and pasta. Kevin was supposed to be at his support group. Every Thursday for almost a year now. A group for people working through anxiety, that's how he'd explained it last fall when he said he needed help. I was glad. I'm a nurse, I believe in professional help. I didn't ask unnecessary questions. I supported him. Was even proud of him that he'd recognized the problem, that he'd reached out. I was such a good wife. The laugh came from the left, from deep in the restaurant. I turned my head automatically, the way you turn toward a familiar sound. Kevin was sitting at a table by the window. Across from him, a woman in her mid-30s, dark hair, a red scarf. They were drinking wine. She was saying something, leaning toward him, and he was laughing this laugh, the one I know by heart, relaxed, like he was home. 2 plates on their table. They'd clearly been there a while. Jen said something about the menu. I didn't hear her. Then I finally heard myself from somewhere inside, quietly and very clearly. This isn't the first time. I don't know where that thought came from. It just arrived and stayed. Nick, where are you going? Jen already had the menu. Let's move, I said. It's drafty over there. It wasn't drafty, but Jen didn't argue. I picked a table in the corner behind a column. From there, I could see them. They couldn't see me. The waiter brought menus. I ordered wine without looking. Jen was saying something about her shift and about Dr. Reeves, who was driving everyone crazy again. I nodded. I can nod and listen at the same time while my attention is somewhere else entirely. 8 years in the ICU teaches you that better than any course. I watched Kevin. He was in the blue shirt, the one I'd bought him for his birthday in March. A good shirt. I remembered picking it out. He'd said, "You know my taste better than I do." I'd smiled at that. The woman across from him was attractive. Not in a model-perfect way. In the way that confidence makes a person attractive regardless of their features. She talked with her hands, animated, and Kevin listened to her the way you listen to something genuinely interesting. Leaning forward, elbows on the table. I know that body language. Nurses read people, it's not a metaphor, it's a professional skill. When a patient says it doesn't hurt and holds their arm a certain way, you know the truth. When a family member says everything is fine and blinks too often, you know the truth. I watched my husband with another woman and read them the way I read patients. Not a first date, too relaxed, no awkwardness. Not just friends, too much touching. She'd touched his hand twice in the 20 minutes I'd been watching. Casually, naturally. The way you touch someone you've grown used to touching. Once, Kevin covered her hand with his. That's when the wine turned bitter. Jen finally noticed I'd gone quiet. "Nick, are you okay?" "Yes," I said, "just tired." That was true. I suddenly felt so exhausted I wanted to put my head on the table and not lift it. Not from the shift. From what I was going to have to do next. From what I already knew and was beginning to understand the scale of what I didn't. Almost a year, I thought. Every Thursday for almost a year. I took out my phone and photographed them. Quickly, without raising it, like I was looking at something on my screen, it came out blurry but good enough. Kevin, blue shirt, the woman with the red scarf. Their hands near each other on the table. Then I finished my wine, asked for the check, and told Jen I wasn't feeling well. That was true too. Lily fell asleep at 8 without any trouble. She always goes down easily, unlike me in those last hours, though I didn't know yet that the last hours would soon become the last months. I kissed her forehead, turned off the cloud nightlight, and closed the door. Then I walked to the kitchen, sat down at the table, and opened my laptop. Nurses don't panic. That's the first thing they teach you, not in textbooks, but in practice. Panic kills faster than illness. When everything falls apart, you take the next step. Just the next one. Then one more. The next step was bank statements. We have 2 joint accounts and 1 personal account each. I'd never looked at his personal account. Not even from trust exactly. There just wasn't a reason. Now there was. He hadn't changed the password in 3 years. Our wedding date plus the name of the dog who died before Lily. I got it on the first try. The first thing that jumped out was restaurants. Carmine's, yes, but not only. Nice places, not the kind we go to together. Places I didn't know, every week, sometimes twice. I opened the calendar in his phone. It syncs to the laptop. I knew that. He'd apparently forgotten or hadn't thought I'd look. Every Thursday, SG 7 p.m. Support group, obviously, but there were other entries. L lunch. L coffee. L one letter. L I sat and stared at it, repeating every few days across 11 months. 11 months. That's when Lily had just started daycare. I'd gone back to full hours after she got older. We'd celebrated dinner, wine. Kevin said he was proud of me. I remembered that evening. I remembered thinking, okay, life is coming together. That was exactly when the first L appeared in his calendar. I didn't cry. Just noted it the way you note a reading on a patient's chart. Critical, but a fact. Emotions later. At 10:45, I heard his key in the lock. I closed the laptop, poured myself tea. When Kevin came into the kitchen, I was sitting with my mug looking out the window, perfectly calm, it seemed to me. "You're still up." He hung his jacket on the hook. "I waited for you," I said. He smiled, came over, kissed my temple. He smelled like a restaurant, food, wine, someone else's perfume. I didn't pull away. "How was group?" I asked. "Fine," he said. "Tough evening, honestly. One guy was talking about his panic attacks, really hard to hear." He poured himself water. Calmly told me about a non-existent person with non-existent panic attacks. 8 years in the ICU. I know how to keep a straight face. "Go to bed," I said. "I'll be right there." In the morning, I got up at 6, like always. Made Lily breakfast, dropped her at daycare, came home. Kevin had already left for work. I stood in the empty kitchen, listened to the coffee maker drip, and thought about the letter L, one letter. 11 months. I opened my laptop. I started with what I knew for certain: the restaurant, Thursday, the time, Carmine's. I found their Instagram page and started scrolling through location tags. People photograph everything: their food, each other, the view from the window. Sometimes other people's stories end up in the frame. I got lucky on the 3rd page. A photo from 6 weeks ago. Someone's posture up close, and in the background, blurry but recognizable, Kevin, and a dark-haired woman. The red scarf was another time. Today she was wearing gray. I zoomed in as far as it would go. Her face was unclear, but enough. I saved the screenshot and kept going. The next hour I spent doing what in another life I might have called stalking. In this life, I called it gathering information, easier that way. I was looking for dark-haired women in Kevin's orbit. LinkedIn, where he had 300-something connections. Facebook, which he barely used but hadn't deleted. Instagram, where he followed 112 people. I went through every profile. On the 48th, I stopped. Lauren Marsh, 38 years old, judging by the photos. Dark hair. She worked at Kevin's company. I hadn't known that. He'd never mentioned her name. Interior designer in the in-house department, according to LinkedIn. Instagram profile semi-open, some posts visible to everyone. I looked through her photos. Cheerful. A dog, a golden retriever, reddish. Flowers she apparently grew herself. One post about a marathon, finish line, medal, happy face, a normal person, a normal life. And then I reached a post from 2 years ago and my breath stopped. Kevin's company holiday party, a group photo, about 20 people, everyone smiling, someone holding drinks. Lauren was in the third row. And next to her, by accident or not, Kevin. They weren't looking at each other, just standing together. Under the photo, Kevin had left a comment, an emoji and, great night. 2 years ago, I sat there doing the math. 11 months in the calendar. But they'd worked together for at least 2 years, maybe longer, which meant before the first L appeared in his phone, there had been something else. Getting acquainted, conversations, that gradual drift toward each other that people later call it just happened. Nothing just happens. I closed the laptop because my hands had started shaking, not from fear, from anger, the first real anger in those 24 hours. Until then, it had been only cold and methodical. Now something hot arrived. I knew her name, Lauren Marsh. And I knew something else, something that had caught in my memory and wouldn't let go, something about this name or this face. I couldn't remember where from. By evening, I remembered. Last fall, at a school event, Lily had just started daycare. One of the moms came up to me and said, "Your husband helped my friend with her move. She's so grateful." I'd been surprised and asked Kevin. He said a colleague, just being a decent person. The colleague's name was Lauren. I waited until his breathing evened out. Lily fell asleep at 8. Kevin went to bed at 11, said he was tired, kissed my cheek, lay down on his side. I lay next to him in the dark and listened to him fall asleep. It usually takes him about 10 minutes. I know because I'd fallen asleep next to him for 8 years. 8 years is a lot to know about a person. At 11:20, I got up, took the laptop from the living room and came back to the bedroom. Turned on the lamp on his nightstand, not the overhead light, just the lamp. He didn't wake up. I sat on the edge of the bed next to him and opened the laptop to his bank account page. Kevin. He didn't wake up right away, turned over, squinted at the light. "Nick, what happened?" "Nothing happened," I said. "I need you to look at something." I turned the laptop toward him. He stared at the screen for 3 seconds. I counted. Then something shifted in his face, very subtly, almost imperceptibly. If I hadn't been watching specifically for it, I wouldn't have caught it. But I was watching specifically. "These are your expenses for the past 11 months, I said. "Restaurants we've never been to together, every week. Sometimes more often. Nick, I'm not finished." He went quiet. I flipped to the Instagram screenshot. The blurry photo from Carmine's him-her, their hands close together on the table. "That was yesterday," I said. "I was there with Jen. You were sitting by the window. You were wearing the blue shirt, the one I bought you for your birthday." Silence. In that kind of silence, you can hear everything. The refrigerator in the kitchen. A car outside. Your own heartbeat. And one more thing, I opened LinkedIn. Lauren Marsh's photo. "Tell me about Lauren Marsh." That's when he closed his eyes. Didn't turn away, didn't start talking, just closed his eyes. 1 second, too. Like a person who's falling and knows they're falling and can't stop it anymore. Then he opened them. "How did you?" "That doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that you're going to tell me the truth right now. All of it. I'm a nurse, Kevin. I know when someone is lying. Don't try." He sat up in bed, ran a hand over his face. And I looked at this person, 8 years together, the father of my daughter, the man who 2 days ago had kissed my temple and smelled like someone else's perfume, and I thought just one thing. Pay attention, remember, this is part of the truth too. "It's been 11 months, he began finally, quietly. "We met before that, but 11 months. "Is that all?" A pause, too long. "No," he said. "We met 3 years ago," he said. "I didn't move. At the company party, you didn't come, remember Lily was sick. I went alone. We started talking. Just talking, Nick. At first it was just. I didn't ask you to explain how it started, I said. I asked you to tell me everything. He went quiet, then nodded. 3 years ago. Lily had just turned 1. I remembered that party. I really hadn't gone because Lily had a fever and I didn't want to leave her with a sitter. Kevin came home late, cheerful, a little drunk. Said it was boring without me. I had smiled at that. The first year we just talked, he continued. At work, coffee sometimes. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just friendship. That you were going through a hard time after Lily, you were working, I didn't want to burden you. Stop, I said. He stopped. You just said you didn't want to burden me, I said slowly. And so what, you found someone else? He opened his mouth, closed it. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant, I said. Keep going. Then came the things I hadn't expected to hear. Not the affair itself, I was prepared for that, I already knew, but the details. Specific, ordinary, frightening in their ordinariness. They'd gone out of town. Several times. I thought those were fishing trips with Damon. Kevin went once a month, sometimes stayed overnight. I never checked. Why check someone you trust? Last December, I remembered December instantly, the way you remember something important. Lily and I had met Kevin at the airport. He'd flown to Chicago for a conference, 3 days. Lily had made a sign, pink marker, crooked letters, "Welcome home, Daddy." Kevin saw us and cried. I thought he'd missed us. Lauren was in Chicago, he said quietly. I stared at him. She was at the conference too. We didn't plan it, nothing just happens, I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from far away. You've said that to me before about something else. Same words. He went quiet. I thought about Lily and her sign. Pink marker, crooked letters. The way she jumped when she spotted him. The way he'd held her and cried into her shoulder. That's the worst part of betrayal, not the moment when you find out, but the way all the other moments get rewritten. You sit there and look at the person, and 3 years of your life play back in your head, and everything that seemed real becomes a question. Was that moment real? What about that one? When he used to look at you that way, what did he see? Does she know about me? I asked. Yes. Does she know about Lily? A pause. Yes. Something inside me closed. Quietly, without a sound, the way you close a window before a storm. Does she want you to leave? I asked. He was silent for a long time. That was the answer. He talked. I listened. I didn't stop him. Nurses know sometimes the most important thing comes after the pause. In what a person has been holding back until the very end. He sat on the bed, looking at the floor, hands between his knees. I could see him gathering himself. She's pregnant, he said. The refrigerator in the kitchen hummed. A car passed outside. Lily breathed quietly and steadily behind the wall. I didn't move. Pregnant. I repeated the word to myself, not because I hadn't understood, but because the brain sometimes needs a second to take in the new scale of what's happening. This wasn't an affair anymore. Not 11 months in a calendar and restaurants I didn't know. This was a child, a parallel life with a name and a due date. How far along? I asked. 4 months. 4 months. I calculated automatically, occupational habit. October, which meant June. This past June. In June, we'd gone to the lake as a family, me, Kevin, Lily. 3 days, a small cabin, Lily learning to swim. Kevin teaching her to float, me photographing from the shore. Good photographs. They're still on my phone. In June, Lauren was already carrying his child. Is she keeping it? I asked. Yes. You want to be with her. Not a question. A statement? I saw the answer before he managed to nod. Something in me then, that cold, methodical part that had held me together all day, began to crack at the edges. Not even from pain, from the sheer absurdity of it. I was sitting in our bedroom at 1 a.m. with a laptop on my knees, looking at a man I'd spent 8 years with. A man who knew how I took my coffee and which side I slept on and what I dreamed about when the dreams were bad. 8 months ago, this man had sat across from me at dinner and told me I was his best friend. I remembered that dinner. A little restaurant on the south side of town, our anniversary, Lily at his parents'. He'd taken my hand across the table and said, "You're my best friend, Nick. You always have been." At that moment, Lauren was 3 months pregnant. "Were you going to tell me?" I asked. "On your own, without all of this?" A long pause. I didn't know how. "That's not an answer to my question." He was quiet, and that was also an answer. I closed the laptop, set it on the nightstand, got up from the bed slowly, the way you get up when your whole body has suddenly become heavy, and walked to the window. Outside was an ordinary nighttime street. A street lamp, someone else's car, a tree with no leaves. 8 years, Lily. A pink sign at the airport. And somewhere in this city, a dark-haired woman carrying my husband's child who knows my name. "Leave tonight," I said. I didn't turn around. I kept looking out the window. "Nick, tonight, Kevin, not tomorrow now. Take what you need for a few days and go." Silence behind me. Then sounds, him getting up, walking to the closet. A drawer opening, things being gathered. I stood there looking at the street lamp and thinking about one thing only, how I would tell Lily. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And what exactly I would say, in what tone of voice, how I would hold her while she tried to understand. The bedroom door opened and closed. A minute later, the front door. I was alone in a silence that was now an entirely different kind of silence. I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling. Outside the window, the sky lightened slowly, reluctantly. First gray, then pale white, then the first hint of pink. I looked at that ceiling and thought about how I'd seen it thousands of times and never really looked at it. At 6:15, Lily stirred behind the wall. I could always hear her, even in sleep, even after the worst shifts when you fall down and don't remember how. The mother radar, Jen calls it, never turns off. I got up, washed my face, looked at myself in the mirror briefly, just checked that my face was in order. Enough in order. Lily was sitting up in bed hugging her rabbit, gray, worn, missing one eye. She'd been dragging it around since she was 18 months old. Kevin had wanted to buy a new one, I wouldn't let him. Some things are valuable precisely because they're worn out. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning, Mom." She looked at me with her eyes, brown, Kevin's eyes, that had always been the most him thing about her. "Did you cry?" 6 years old. 6 years old, and she sees everything. "A little," I said. "Everything's okay." She accepted that. Children accept everything's okay when your voice is steady enough. I was careful with my voice. We went to the kitchen. I made her oatmeal. She likes it with honey and cinnamon, no raisins. She picks out the raisins and lines them up on the edge of her bowl with the expression of someone who has been deeply wronged. I set the bowl in front of her and thought about that word. Wronged. While she ate, I stood at the window with my coffee and looked out at the street. An ordinary morning. The school bus at the end of the block. The neighbor with his dog. A world that didn't know something had broken in this house last night. "Mom, where's Dad?" I turned around. Lily was looking at me, spoon in hand, honey on her chin, completely serious face. There it was. The moment I'd been dreading all night while I stared at the ceiling. I'd rehearsed it, the words, the tone, how to sit, where to look. Nurses know preparation doesn't cancel out the pain, but it gives it shape. Shape helps. I took my mug, walked to the table, and sat across from her. At her level, the way you sit when you're about to say something important. "Dad went away for a few days," I said. "He's going to be staying somewhere else while we work some things out." She looked at me without blinking. "Did you fight?" "A little, yes. Grown-ups fight sometimes, and they need time to talk." "Is he coming back?" The simplest question. "The hardest one?" "He will always be your dad," I said. "He loves you, that is never going to change." She thought for a second. then picked up her spoon and started eating again. Children can accept incomplete answers, not because they don't understand, but because they can sense when an adult is at the edge and they spare them. Lily had always sensed that. "Okay," she said. "Mom, will you put an apple in my lunch box?" I got up, took an apple, started cutting. And it was then, over the cutting board, while Lily chattered about something from school, that I finally cried. Quietly, without turning around. Shoulders straight. Voice steady when I answered her. 8 years in the ICU, I know how to cry where nobody can see. Daycare opened at 7:30. I brought Lily 10 minutes early. We sat in the car and listened to the radio. She sang something from a cartoon under her breath, swinging her feet, holding her rabbit. I watched her in the rearview mirror and thought, this is what's real. This is what stays. At 7:35, I hugged her at the entrance, waited until the teacher closed the door, got back in the car. I sat for a minute, then took out my phone and texted the head nurse, Carolyn, "I'll be in within the hour. No, I'm fine, no explanations, just I'll be in." Carolyn replied within a minute, "Okay. We've worked together 7 years. She doesn't ask unnecessary questions." I drove home, showered, changed into my scrubs, looked at myself in the mirror while I buttoned up. Nurse Nicole Hartley, 38 years old, ICU, that I knew for cert. Everything else, wife, partner, half of something whole that needed to be sorted out again. But not now. Right now, scrubs, badge, car. The ICU always smells the same. Antiseptic, plastic, something faintly metallic. People from outside say the smell is heavy. I don't notice it, it's air to me. Home. "You okay?" Carolyn caught me at the nurse's station. "Yes," I said. "What do we have?" She looked at me for a second, then nodded and started briefing me. 4 patients, 2 critical, 1 admitted overnight. I listened and nodded and felt something in me level out, the way pressure levels when you open a window. Work was the one place I still knew the rules. The first 3 hours went the way they always did: procedures, monitoring, doctors with orders, family members with questions. I answered, acted, checked. My hands remembered everything on their own. My head was here, not in our bedroom, not in Carmine's, not in his calendar with the letter L. Then there was a break, short, maybe 15 minutes, and I went out to the service stairwell. Sat down on a step, closed my eyes. 8 years, 3 years of knowing each other before that. 11 years I'd known this person, or thought I knew him. Nurses understand, sometimes the body looks healthy right up until the end. All the readings normal, the patient smiling, saying they feel fine. And then, suddenly, because compensation isn't treatment, compensation is just a delay, I'd thought we were fine. We weren't perfect, there had been hard periods, but overall fine. He'd been attentive, helped with Lily, said he loved me. Compensating, that was the right word. The whole time this was happening, he was more attentive, kinder, more present. I had taken it for love. It was guilt. That was the discovery that actually hurt, not the facts, not the dates, not the name Lauren Marsh. The realization that I'd been reading the signs wrong. That the tenderness of these past months, which I remembered with warmth, it wasn't about me. It had never been about me. The young nurse Priya, new, 3 months with us, appeared in the doorway. "Nicole, Carolyn is looking for you. Room 6. "Coming," I said. I stood up, straightened my scrubs, and as I walked down the corridor back to the station, I made a decision. Not loudly, not solemnly. I just understood what I needed to do next. I didn't want to wait for his explanations. The question why wouldn't bring anything back. Forward, 1 step, then 1 more, like always. The last patient settled down at 8 in the evening. Carolyn and I finished the handoff, filled out the paperwork, and I was already pulling on my jacket when she said, not as a question, just, "Stay a minute." The break room at the end of the hall. A couch with a sunken cushion, a coffee maker that hums even when it isn't running, a window looking onto the parking lot. We'd sat in here hundreds of times, after hard shifts, after losses, just when you needed to breathe before going home. Carolyn poured coffee, set it in front of me, sat down across from me, and was quiet. That's what I love about her. She knows how to be quiet. Not the silence that presses and demands to be filled. Just space. Take it if you need it. I took it. Kevin is leaving, I said. He has someone else. She's pregnant, 4 months. Carolyn held her mug in both hands, looked at me. How long? Not a question, she was establishing the scope, the way you establish a medical history. 11 months for certain. Known each other 3 years. He told me everything himself last night. Does Lily know? That dad went away for a while, nothing else. Carolyn nodded, was quiet a little longer, then said, How are you doing, actually? Not professionally, just asking, I thought honestly. I don't know, probably both, but mostly. I searched for the word. Mostly I'm tired, not from the shift. From holding it together for 2 days. You're good at that, she said, without irony. Sometimes too good. I looked at her. What does that mean? She set down her mug. Carolyn always does that when she's about to say something important, freeze her hands. It means you're thinking like a nurse right now. Next step, then one more, keep your face straight. Don't fall apart in front of your kid. That's right, and it's saving you at this moment. But, I said, listen, she said, wife, mother, nurse, that's all you. I'm not arguing, but it's not the whole list. Silence. Outside in the parking lot, someone was trying to start their car, taking a while, had to try twice. I don't know who I am without all that, I said. I've been a wife and a mother and a nurse for 8 years. That's who I am. No, Carolyn said calmly. That's what you did. It's not the same thing. I looked at her and thought about how much I hated when she was right. 7 years together in the ICU, she knows me in the situations where people show themselves for real. Under pressure, exhausted, when everything is going wrong. Maybe she knows me better than Kevin did in 8 years. Maybe better than I know myself. He wanted to leave on his own, I said suddenly. I realized that last night. She's pregnant, he wanted to go, he just didn't know how. I got there first. How does that feel? A good question, I thought about it. Better, I said. Strangely better. I don't want to be the person who got left. I want to be the person who decided. Carolyn smiled slightly, the first time during that whole conversation. There, she said, that's just you. I finished my coffee. Cold by then, bad coffee, but I finished it. Outside the window, the parking lot had emptied out. A street lamp lit up empty asphalt and a lone shopping cart someone had left at the edge. Carolyn, I said, thank you. Go home, she answered. Hug Lily. The call came on a Friday around noon. Unknown number. I don't usually pick up for unknowns, but something made me. Intuition, maybe, or just fatigue from being careful. Nicole, an unfamiliar voice. Female. Steady, not nervous, not aggressive. Like someone who had spent a long time preparing for this call and decided to be calm. Yes, I said, this is Lauren Marsh. I was standing at the living room window. Outside it was a Friday, ordinary, sunny, completely indifferent to what was happening in my life. I looked at the neighbor's maple tree and thought, here it is. I'm listening, I said. A short pause. I'm not calling to explain myself, she said, and not for forgiveness. I know what I did and I'm not going to pretend it can be explained with the right words. Okay, I said. Then why? Because there's something you need to know before the legal process starts. About money. I sat down. Tell me. She spoke evenly, directly, without detours. Like someone who was used to working with numbers herself, she was a designer. But it turned out she had a business background. I hadn't known that. She talked about an account I hadn't seen in his bank statements, because it was at a different bank. About transfers. About a sum that had been accumulating over the past 2 years. I listened and wrote on a piece of paper I found on the kitchen table. Numbers, bank name, approximate dates. How do you know about this? I asked when she finished. A pause. Because he told me he was saving for our fresh start, she said. For a life together after he told you, I thought he was setting it aside for us. Then I started thinking differently. Differently how? Differently meaning he was saving it for himself, Lauren said, in case things went wrong with either of us. Insurance. He's a very practical man, Nicole. You know that better than I do. Silence. The maple outside swayed in the wind. Calmly, steadily, I thought about Kevin, about his orderliness that I'd always valued. The grocery list on the fridge. The car always with a full tank. Vacations booked 6 months ahead. I had thought that was caring, it was logistics. Why are you telling me this? I said. Not a question, I wanted to hear her version. A long pause, the first real one in the whole conversation. Because I'm pregnant and alone, she said at last. And I realized last week that he's doing to me exactly what he did to you. Says one thing, does another. I don't know who he is, and you don't either. Neither of us does. Something in those words, not sympathy, not anger, just a kind of strange precision, landed exactly where it needed to. Neither of us knows. How are you feeling? I asked. She went quiet. She seemed not to have expected that question. Fine, she said carefully. Physically fine. Good, I said, a pause. That's all I wanted to say, Lauren said. Good luck to you. And to you, I said. She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, looking at my notes. Numbers, bank name, dates. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the lawyer. While I waited for an answer, I thought about Lauren Marsh. Pregnant, alone, called the wife of the man she loved to warn her about money. I didn't know what to do with that. Hating her had been easier before this call. Nothing is ever simple. The lawyer picked up. I said, I need to meet as soon as possible. There are new developments. A year later, Lily goes to Kevin's on Friday evenings and comes back Sunday afternoon. That's our rhythm now. It didn't come easily through lawyers, awkward conversations. One time I cried in the car in the parking lot outside his new place. Lily had come out, waved at me, and run to him. I sat there and watched. Then I drove home. Now I know, you just watch, you just drive. Today is Saturday, 8 in the morning. I'm sitting in the kitchen with coffee, same mug, same window, and the house is quiet. Not the silence from a year ago, when Kevin closed the front door and I was left alone, and the silence was like a vacuum, like something extracted. A different silence. Just quiet, just mourning. I've learned to distinguish between kinds of silence. An unexpected skill for someone who works in the ICU. The divorce was finalized in March. 8 months, fast, as these things go. The lawyer knew what to do with that piece of paper with the numbers. The finances resolved in my favor. Kevin didn't fight long. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe he just wanted to finish quickly. He had another life to build. Lauren gave birth in February, a boy. Lily knows about the baby brother. Kevin told her himself, I asked him to do it, not me. She came home on Sunday, was quiet all evening, and then before bed said, Mom, it's weird. I said, yes, it's weird. She thought about it and said, but I guess it's okay. I said, I guess it's okay. 6 years old. She's handling it better than I am sometimes. On the mornings when Lily is at Kevin's, I do something I never used to do, I just sit. I don't plan, don't make lists, don't think a step ahead. Just coffee and the window and the maple tree that I've memorized over this past year. How it changes through the seasons, how different branches move in the wind. Carolyn asks sometimes, how are you? I answer honestly, I'm not sure yet. She nods. It's the right answer, we both understand that. I don't know who I'll be a year from now. That used to frighten me, not knowing. Now there's something in the not knowing that feels like air. Space that wasn't there before. Once, about 3 months ago, I ran into Lauren at the grocery store. By accident in the dairy aisle. She had a stroller with her. We both stopped for a second. She said, "Hi." I said, "Hi." We went in different directions. Nothing more, sometimes that's enough. I think about Kevin less than I expected. Not because it doesn't hurt, it hurts sometimes, comes over me in the most ordinary moments without warning. Sometimes I see a blue shirt on a stranger, and something tightens for a second. Sometimes Lily does something with his gesture, tilts her head just so, and I look at her and feel everything at once. But I think about him less than I think about what comes next. That's probably what moving forward is. The pain stops being the only thing that's there, and in that space, something of your own starts to appear. I finish my coffee. Look at the maple, October. Almost all the leaves are down, just the last few holding on, stubborn. I think about my shift tomorrow, about Lily coming back the day after, and telling me about her weekend with Dad, and I'll listen and nod, and it will be okay. Not easy, okay. I get up, rinse the mug. The house is quiet, just my morning, for now, that's enough.